morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by Vaughn Lane. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Be sure to tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, and get your questions in. We'll get to those in a little bit. We got quite a bit to talk about this morning, guys. But first, Bobby, I'm going to actually kind of let you lead the way with this one and talk about Steve Mongo McMichael.
Yeah, unfortunate news happened yesterday. Former Longhorn, or lifetime Longhorn, Steve McMichael passed away. Young, tough situation there. Had a long battle with ALS. Went into the Hall of Fame just last year, Jerry and Blake, and a lot of people will remember him as a defensive tackle down out of South Texas, and just a good guy that his teammates all speak so strongly of him. Everybody that was around him. I watched something yesterday. Walter Payton obviously was a long-term teammate of his, and his son, Walter's son, Jarrett Payton, shared a video talking with Steve McMichael, talking about the human condition and how compassion was the strongest of all human conditions. And just a long storied career. You see him there with Ric Flair. McMichael transitioned from football, a Hall of Fame career in football, to being a wrestler, just a larger than life personality, I think is what I'm told from people that knew him and knew him well. So condolences to he and his family. But hopefully he's in a better place today than he was yesterday. And I think that's the feeling for all of them. I want to add a couple other things. I know some people today are really worried about Henry Melton and his recovery as well. Henry Melton, the former Longhorn defensive lineman in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, 2005, that level 6, 7, 8. He is still recovering from a very serious heart issue. His mom passed away this week. And then finally, I want to say this. I know a number of different guys from the University of Texas and the team are actually headed to the memorial service of Kenneth Sims today in Austin. I spoke to one of them this morning that's on the way there at 11. That happens at 11 o'clock. Family, friends, teammates, all going to be celebrating the life of Kenneth Sims at 11 o'clock. That's horrible. That's not nice news to start the morning, but I think things happen. You got to roll with them, and I just hope those around them help them as much as possible. All three of those people, excellent Longhorns and guys that represented the University of Texas. So my thoughts go out to them and their families.
You know what I've always thought when the first time I kind of did like some research on Steve McMichael, I always go to the wiki page the high school guys go to. And the crazy thing to me is Freer High School, where he went, had 3 professional athletes in that class. It was Jim Acker in baseball, Bill Acker, NFL, and Steve McMichael out of Freer High School. And somebody may be from Freer in this chat. Like, what did they have? 50 kids in a graduate, at max, maybe 30 kids in that graduating class in 76 in Freer, maybe 50. And 3 of them were pro athletes. And that's like unheard of. Even if you were in deep East Texas at Hooks and Billy Sims days, I mean, 3 professional athletes in one senior class. And they probably had, 20 boys in the senior class.
I spoke whenever he got elected to the Hall of Fame. I spoke to the Ackers about that actually, and there is a state trooper, by the way, that is a fan of the show that hooked me up with him.
Okay,
with those guys, and so there are people from Freer. We helped put the Freer. If y'all don't remember this, one of the things we did was a fundraiser for the Freer band. To go to the Hall of Fame ceremony, and they did make it up there in part because of folks like you guys that contributed. So we appreciate that. But anyways, not all the news that we want to deliver in a morning time show, but I think that
one of the greats. Yeah.
Tip of the cap to you, man. Best of luck in where you're at next. So.
Okay, I tell you what, Bobby, we're going to talk to Portal here in a second, but first, I'm going to go ahead and let's tell everyone out there about Vaughn Lane.
Yeah, absolutely will do. And Vaughn Lane is one of our newer sponsors, guys, and I really appreciate them very much. Just hop on that bus if you're going anywhere between major cities in Texas, whether that's Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Fort Worth. If you've ever tried a same-day round trip between, I don't know, Dallas and Austin, it's hours of lost productivity, emails pile up, calls go unanswered, and work is left undone while you focus on the road. Why waste the day when you could stay connected and productive with Vaughn Lane, and you don't have to worry about driving. Vaughn Lane changes everything. It's luxury regional bus travel, 22 seats on each bus. You get to spread out, lay back a little bit. What some call a private jet on wheels. Sink into a plush leather seat with a leg rest. Stay connected with complimentary Wi-Fi. Enjoy snacks and drinks on every trip, all complimentary, plus delicious meals on select departures. If you need to freshen up, they have hot towel service. If you want to relax, they've got eye masks, pillows, and blankets to keep you cozy. It's nice and quiet in there. The Vaughn Lane team takes care of every detail so you can sit back, unwind, and enjoy the most comfortable travel experience on the road. Business travelers, recapture your productivity. Leisure travels, sit back, relax, and get pampered. And don't worry about if you have a little too much fun in Austin, you're not behind the wheel on the way home. And if you're planning a football game, concert, or special event, and you actually can also charter your own Vaughn Lane coach for the ultimate group experience. Vaughn Lane is first-class travel without the hassle. See for yourself. Visit VaughnLane.com. That's VONLANE.com. Use promo code OTF25 and you get $20 off your first trip. Again, that's VaughnLane.com.
Okay, guys. Well, the portal closes tomorrow, so I thought we could do a little review here. We could talk about what Texas has done in the portal, along with maybe what we could expect over the next couple of days.
Yeah, so I think, look, we're down to about 48 hours left in the portal. Like 11:59 p.m. on Friday, the portal closes. So that means current players on the Texas roster have about less than 48 hours to put their name in the portal if they plan to go into the portal. That doesn't mean it would go public at that time. There's that 48-hour grace period where the colleges can negotiate, talk to, whatever you want to call it these days, with a player that jumps into the portal. And then that also means we're down to 48 hours for a current player to jump in the portal that Texas may have interest in, Bobby. And we think there's very few guys left, very few positions left Texas would have interest in, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But we shall see 10 guys in the portal. We did part of our state of the program was CJ, myself, and Bobby kind of talked about and compared the 2024 portal class of 12 to this 2025 portal class so far of 10, and kind of how we saw things shaking out right now. And that 24 portal class looks really good on paper up against the wall right now, with Matthew Golden doing what he did, about to be a first rounder tonight, and Bakuba having a great season. Isaiah Bond, I don't know what's going to happen in the draft, but where he was projected, I think they got 4.5 to 5 starters out of that portal class. I think they may have 6 to 7 in this portal class, but that doesn't mean it'd be the same NFL draft result, because there's more 2-year players, multi-year players in this portal cycle.
We talked about it yesterday on State of the Program and tried to go over it. First of all, what's going on right now with the portal? I don't think Texas has any plans this week for the portal. I think that there may be some movement leaving the program, okay, that we need to all kind of be aware of. I do not expect any of that leaving the program to be first-team guys. So I want to get that out of it's just natural attrition that's going to occur, I think. We'll see if there's much of that at all. Okay. But as far as influx, I don't think Texas is going to do anything until next week after they gauge what happens at the end of this week. And they may have to be somewhat reactionary to that. Perhaps they have some things in mind that are going on and then can act on it. But until some things happen, there's no next step to actually be taken, if that makes sense for everybody. So kind of think of it this way, on hold right now for the portal until this 11:59 p.m. Friday deadline, so Texas knows exactly what's going with its own roster first and foremost. All right, that's part one. Part two is what Jerry talked about, is how good Texas did, and what Blake was talking about, how good Texas did in comparison to a year ago. Last year, I looked. I mean, Texas took a number of different players, but most of them had just 1 year left in the program. So whether it was Jermaine Lole, Bill Norton, Isaiah Bond, you knew was going to be a 1 year guy. You didn't maybe know Matthew Golden was going to be a 1 year guy, but he turned out to be a 1 year guy, right? And so you had Andrew Makuba, you knew would be a 1 year guy. The difference between this class and last class primarily is the fact that they have multiple multi-year players. So whether that's Emmett Mosley at wide receiver, Jack Indries potentially at tight end, although he could be a early out guy given his production from Cal. Then you have Levon Johnson at Maryland, as well as Murad Watson from Syracuse. All of those guys are multi-year guys, or at least half of them are multi-year guys, whereas last year 90% of them were 1 year guys.
Right.
And so I think that is a positive for the Longhorns. We'll see what that all means. Like Brad Spence likely has 2 years. We need to talk about Brad Spence, by the way, at some point, because I got news. I mean,
same.
Jerry and I have been pretty high on him from the outset, just based on what we were hearing. But, man, I heard something yesterday that made me think that he was going to be just a better player, maybe. Like, I wrote this morning on ontexasfootball.com that he may be the surprise of all the portal guys at this point, of the 5 that came in. Like, he's the second half of spring camp. He was a little dinged up, and Jerry had mentioned this. He's going to be a player for Texas. Now, how does that work with Trey Moore in the loop, Leonga Lafau in the middle as well? I don't know, but he may just be too good to keep off the field, is kind of what I'm hearing.
I think that's
so. All in all, my point is, Texas has killed it in the portal, in my opinion. I look at, and I want to add. I guess I'll add this because I went over and kind of, I wanted to do some comparisons. Like LSU, I thought had a great portal window, by the way.
Yes.
Okay, but now they lost some guys. Texas. What's unique about Texas compared to LSU and A&M and OU? Those 3 territorial big programs, right, Jerry?
Yep.
LSU, A&M, OU. Those are the 3 primary competitors for recruiting for Texas in the state of Texas. LSU lost some key guys in the portal. They did. Okay. A&M lost 4 starters in the portal. Okay. Noah Thomas is a big loss for them. The offensive lineman from Westlake, TJ Shanahan, was a starter for them.
Yeah.
They lost Cam Dewberry, was a starter for them.
At times.
They lost Gabe Brownlow-Dindy, was a rotational guy at defensive tackle for them. The difference between Texas and OU, LSU, and A&M, Texas didn't lose much. Like the only guy off the 2 deep, and you can count Bert Auburn. Okay, I think that's fair. That's a loss at some level because at least even though they brought in another place kicker, it's still a loss. The only guy that Texas really lost that was second team or above going into this year was Amari Nyblack. I mean, think about that, guys. Compared to, Tom and Pepe left A&M, big interior defensive lineman. Went to Baylor. I mean, they lost I'm just putting it out there. They lost quite a bit. Texas has not. Texas is losing guys to the NFL. So it's not like Texas has the same team coming back. I'm not getting that. I'm not giving y'all that. It's just really nice job. Really nice job by creating an environment, frankly, that players want to be a part of. And that includes finances with NIL and making it attractive to be at Texas. That includes coaching staff that is largely positive, and not these browbeaters that go in and yell and scream. They have connections. There's just a lot of things. You look at, again, I think LSU did really well in the portal. Okay? Very well. But they lost some guys. So it wasn't just, whereas Texas, I think, is just adding. Other than, going to the NFL, Texas is in a rare circumstance. I went and looked at it. The only other team that I feel comfortable saying is similarly situated in that regard is Ohio State. They didn't really lose anybody. Southern Cal has done well in the portal. Oregon's done well. They've lost some people. So it's interesting.
Yeah. So it'd be kind of following up on that. What is Brad Spence? Well, he's listed at 238, but that's kind of what he was listed at Arkansas. I'm not, because he missed some time in fall. He had an injury that he kind of was rehabbing from his season at Arkansas. Looking at him in person, that spring window, he's 235, 240. He's in that range. So that 238, he may weigh the exact same thing. Who knows? But he's right in that range, it looks like. Again, I've heard dude, like just called a dude. He's really, really impressed.
That's great.
And I think it's versatility. He can play off the ball or he can rush the passer. I think he's got a lot of football intellect to his game, is what he's got. And along with being a productive player. If you look at it, look at his last few games of the season, he had 3.5 sacks in his last 4 games. But he had 11 tackles and a half a sack against Mississippi State. Then he had 7 tackles and a sack against Texas. That's where Texas fans remember him. 8 tackles against La Tech and a sack, and had a sack against Missouri. He was a very, very productive player that last 5 games of the season. Not that he wasn't before, but he even kind of went to another level in his production at the end of that season for Arkansas. And I think he was, and I've said it on the show, I don't think, because D tackle was such a need, right? I think it was kind of, he wasn't talked about enough how good a player he actually is. He is on NFL boards going into next year. He's an NFL radar prospect, is what he is.
Everything I'm hearing, he is an NFL player.
Yeah.
That's the kind of, again, people didn't expect. I didn't know that. I thought Andrew Makuba would be a late round draft pick, maybe coming to Texas. I didn't expect him to have the year he had. He was just, he completed that secondary. That he just really did. Hopefully Brad Spence does the same thing. Jesse Bostello also says Ohio State lost Hero Kanu. Hero Kanu was going to be a rotational piece for them on the defensive line. It wasn't a starter. So I consider Hero Kanu very similar to how Texas lost Amari Niblack.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the starter, but a piece of depth. And I mentioned that Niblack and Bert Auburn are really the 2 guys that Texas, quote unquote, lost. Sadir Mitchell was another one that I thought about, but really, did they lose him? Or was that just the best thing to happen for both parties, maybe? So I get it, Jesse, but Heroes looked a little bit more as a second team depth piece for Ohio State, not unlike Amari Niblack was for Texas.
And I'm going to say that, I'm going to say again, look, I was on record. I thought Texas would be better on the interior against the run next year, this season versus last season, because I think Cole Brevard's really a stout guy over the ball. I think Travis Shaw is a good player against the run. And I think Hero Kanu has that experience now. Obviously, adding LaVon Johnson, who was set to be a starter at Maryland. But Murad Watson, he's a freshman All-American. And, I mean, when you start getting to 30 tackles from a interior D-line position as a freshman in college football, he is I think that one is going to be underrated until it's not talked about enough until it's not. That one, I think, sent some shockwaves through the state of Texas and maybe the opponents of Texas, maybe even outside.
Did you hear about that? We
well,
should.
I just think, look, that's one that Texas got done quickly before anybody could react. And I think the thought around that was, golly, they already had 3-4 really good players at that position out of the portal. And then they go in and beat people from a timing perspective on Murad Watson. Because look, if he was lingering out there right now, if he just said, I'm going to go through the whole visit process, I'm playing this out, there's no doubt that Oklahoma, LSU, and A&M would have been trying to get in on him.
Hell yeah.
He's really good.
That's the point that I was I agree. Hey, Jerry, here's the other issue, okay? You talk about all those defensive tackles. You have a freshman wide receiver that had 48 catches in 9 games.
Mm-hmm.
He had 26 catches over his last 3 games of the year. I'm talking about Emmett Mosley.
Yeah.
He had more than the guy, Alec Onamior, that's going in the second round of this upcoming draft. Over the last 3 games, Emmett Mosley was more productive than a guy that's going to go in the second round. Okay. So then you have Jack Indries, who caught 56 passes last year at tight end. Boomeister was second team All Big 12 as a punter, averaging 45 yards a boot. Texas killed it in the portal. We talked a little bit about it yesterday, but just give me a break. I mean, at some level, Texas is operating right now at a different thing. That all being said, hiatus for the next 48 hours.
Yeah.
They're gonna bring in, and from a recruiting perspective, Jerry, you're going to be on top of this out at Fan Appreciation Day, et cetera, on Saturday. They're bringing in a host of highly decorated high school players this weekend. So that's going to be a big piece of what they do this weekend, as opposed to necessarily portal recruiting this weekend. So there you go. That's a lot to talk about. We talked quite a bit about portal there.
Well, I think we're going to look back and say, counting the specialists, that got 7 starters this year out of the portal.
Jeez.
That's what I think is about to happen.
Mosley, Indries, Boomeister, and Shipley for sure. That's your specialist. Maybe Spence.
Yeah.
Watson, Brevard.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I still think Alex January may be one of the starters.
Well, and here's the thing. I should say starter level snaps, because it's a rotation. Starter level snaps. I think they got 7 guys.
Yeah.
7 guys.
I mean, what are they looking at defensive tackle? Really, what are you trying to do nowadays? 25 to 30 snaps a game max?
Yeah, and somebody's asking, will that change the rotation? Robert Jackson, the Emperor, will that rotate the D line they just got? Sark's already said we got to play more players. So I don't think these guys are coming in under the impression they're all going to play 50 snaps, because they wouldn't be coming in. That wouldn't, look, I think even the freshmen, and I'm here to tell you, we talked about yesterday, Texas loves the freshman defensive linemen that they have in this class. They're still freshmen, and now they're in a position to bring those guys along and help them develop and get them some reps, but look, you got to have, when you go to Ohio State, game 1, you want to have some experienced guys to line up against Ohio State's offensive line on the interior. And you have 5-6 guys that have played college ball now that you can rotate in those games. Then the next 3 games, you can probably have a little bigger rotation, right, Bobby, get those young kids. But these guys, they're all going to play. Sark said it. And Texas likes those young kids. And I'm not just talking about Sharma and Charles. They love Justice Terry, who's playing more of that jack position. Until he gets bigger. They love Lance Jackson. I mean, Smith Orogbo he didn't work out. He's coming off the knee, but Texas loves those freshman guys. Colin Simmons mentioning those guys as 3-year players, Justice Terry and Lance Jackson. So Texas loves those guys. They just have a lot of depth, and they're going to use that depth, is my prediction. They're going to keep these guys fresh, healthy for a long season. And I think that's also, Bobby, very inviting to kids nowadays. I think the days of 35 carry running backs and the days of playing 70 snaps at D-line, those guys, I'm not sure that appeals to these kids anymore. It doesn't mean they don't want to work, but I think they look at a bigger picture for themselves versus just how many snaps am I playing in a college game every Saturday.
Sark talks about it all the time. Don't count your snaps. Just make your snaps count.
Yeah.
Because that ultimately is what – I mean, Ethan Burke's a great example, right? Ethan Burke's going to be a draft pick, all right, after this year, okay? He may not be – last year he got some of his snaps almost reduced because of the presence of Trey Moore. Makes sense, right? And the emergence of Colin Simmons at the same time, while Barron Sorrell was still around. But the comment to Ethan Burke is, okay, instead of you having 50 snaps a game, you're going to have 35 or 30 and go make those count. And the NFL is not going to count your snaps. They're going to count your production.
Yeah.
And so to Jerry's point, that's what really matters. And if you're a 320-pound defensive tackle, are you going to be more productive in 25 plays or 45 plays? Well, look, Tavondre Sweat was playing 35 plays a game his senior year at Texas. 35 plays a game. Okay. He went in the second round.
Yeah.
It's not, there are I will say this, there are certain positions where you have to take all the snaps. Quarterback, right? I mean, I'm not saying it works for every single position, but certain ones, I think it's what you do with your plays that count. So don't count your plays, count what you do in those.
And I think we have to start looking at least I have, and I think there's probably a lot of people in the chat that are already doing this. I think you have to start looking at the really good college football teams that are going to be in it every year as far as a playoff hunt. You have to start thinking about them in terms of a basketball rotation in a weird way. There's more players, but I think about it this way. So in your non-con, you're playing 10, 11 guys, right? You're trying to save some minutes later in the year for your best players. You're trying to get those other guys some experience in case you have injuries and have to be more key rotational players later. And then once you get into the middle of conference, you start to kind of wind that thing up a little bit. And maybe a couple of those guys don't play as much. Maybe you start to dial back from an 11-man rotation to a 9-man rotation. Then when it comes NCAA tournament time, you're playing 8, maybe 9 in a rotation. I think you just have to think about it in basketball terms now for the college football teams that are preparing for longer seasons. They're going to play a lot more guys if they have them. And then in the games that matter, maybe you see different snap counts for guys. Then maybe later in the season, as you've got everybody snaps, you kept people fresh, then you're late in the season and you're trying to prep this thing for your playoff run. You dial that rotation back a little bit. And those guys start playing a few more snaps, lean into an SEC title game, and in the playoffs, all bets are off. I think that's kind of the way I look at it nowadays from a college football perspective, just based on what the college coaches are saying, that we got to play more players. We got to build our depth for longer seasons. But then when it comes to crunch time, you're going to see that rotation shrink.
Okay, here, let's see. We got some super chats. We got some questions, and we also have a lot more to talk about. But before we get to some of that, Bobby, I'm going to let you tell everyone about Mint Mobile.
Yeah, we did a lot of talking there. So we need to, if you do a lot of talking over the phone, you may need a plan from Mint Mobile. Do you say data or data? Well, at our house, we say data. And for the longest time, I thought paying a fortune on our monthly plan, a data plan, was just normal. That was until we found out about Mint Mobile and their premium wireless plans that start at just $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data or data, your choice, and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan. You can bring your own phone number along with all your existing contacts. None of that switches, but you can ditch overpriced wireless and get 3 months of premium wireless service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. No matter how you say it, don't overpay for it. Shop data plans at mintmobile.com/OnTexas. That's mintmobile.com/OnTexas. Upfront payments of about $45 for a 3-month gigabyte plan is required. That's the equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees are extra. See Mint Mobile for details. Thank you, Mint Mobile, for sponsoring On Texas Football.
And I'm also going to tell everyone about Pure Hydration. It's a plant-based hydrating electrolyte drink mix with no added sugar. It's natural, delicious, and it's a convenient way to keep you and your whole family hydrated, but without the artificial stuff. And Cure is right up my alley because I am very selective on what I put in my body. It's made with clean ingredients, which means you can stay healthy, stay energized, but without the crash. And hydration is key to feeling your best, and Cure makes it easier than ever. I drink it every single morning to start my day, usually on right here at Coffee and Football. I got it right here beside me. It tastes great, and they offer 7 amazing flavors that you're going to love. It's also convenient. You can take it with you anywhere, as each bag contains 14 on-the-go packets that you just dump in a bottle of water, shake it up, and you're ready to go. Hydration goes beyond just drinking water. It's about replenishing the electrolytes that we lose through sweat, sleep, alcohol, and daily activities. Water alone isn't enough to do the job. And that's why you need to try Cure, the electrolyte drink mix that tastes as amazing as it makes you feel. And for OTF listeners, Cure is offering 20% off your first order. Stay hydrated and feel your best by visiting curehydration.com/OnTexas and then use promo code OnTexas at checkout. Again, that's curehydration.com/OnTexas, promo code OnTexas for 20% off your first order. All right, well, the NFL draft starts. And Bobby, I'm first, before we get into that a little bit, we got a couple of mock drafts, a couple of behind the scenes, tidbits of info to share with everybody. But tell everybody what the plan is tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. 7:00. Aaron Hogan, who does our watch with us during the season, is going to be hosting. We'll be talking Texas football interspersed with talking about the NFL draft. We did it last year, and we had a ball. Everybody came in and just hung out. Of course, they were watching the draft live on their own TVs. We were talking a little bit about some of the things we thought. Rod Babers will stop by. Jeff Howe, CJ Vogel, myself, Jerry. We will all be on at different times tonight, just having a little bit of fun. Yes, obviously, Jerry Jones does not screw up the draft, though. I mean, he's actually a pretty good drafter. It's the other parts that Jerry Jones seems to.
Everything else.
Yeah. And somebody, I mentioned Jerry Jones because somebody mentioned that in the chat there. But anyways, 7:00 tonight. Come have a cocktail with us. Sit down, have a beer, chill out, watch the draft, and we'll go from there. Cowboys at 12, I think, currently. What are the Texans at? Are they at? Is that 20? Is that
20-ish? Right.
The draft itself, by the way, is going to be in Green Bay, which is kind of interesting as they're taking it to different cities and stuff. One of the seats of college, or one of the seats of pro football. That'll be interesting to see what all happens there, because Green Bay is not this large town. I mean, it's a good hour and a half, 2 hours from Milwaukee, and it is in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. No offense to people that live in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. But I'll be interested to see. They may have, I don't know, 100,000 people at that thing, and if so, that's a lot for Green Bay, Wisconsin. So should be fun to see it all transpire. A small town like that getting a big event like this.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I love what the NFL does, moving the draft around.
I do too.
I think that's really smart. I think they're really on to something. I love it. And look, it's going to be it's kind of crazy. The thing about the NFL draft every year for me is kind of crazy because, like tonight, I'll think back to Kelvin Banks, the first time I saw Kelvin Banks at Summer Creek. and how big of a jump he made. He was always great in pass pro. Kenny Harrison, lifetime Longhorn, great offensive coach there at Summer Creek, does a great job with those kids. He was always well ahead in pass pro. And then the junior to senior year, how much more fit, not that he wasn't physical, but how many notches he took it up as a senior and how different he looked. You always think back to like the first time you see those kids. Bobby, I know you do that. I know you did that for years when you're ranking the guys. Like then the draft comes and you think back to the first time you saw him or when you made that trip to see those guys. Matthew Golden's a cool one because I went to Klein Kane to see Jaden Blue. And I knew Matthew Golden was a good player. But it's crazy how all this stuff works out. Okay. I remember talking to the Klein Kane high school staff. And the one question I always ask guys is who's the best player on your team? And this isn't a knock on Jaden Blue. He was ranked really high. They're saying Matthew Golden, hands down. And multiple coaches told me that. And he punted, he played Wildcat quarterback. He did everything. And you know what's happening tonight? He's going first round of the draft, and he's going ahead. They were right.
Hey, Jerry.
At the end of the day, they were right. And that's one of the cool things about going out and seeing all these kids. If you ask the right questions, it'll lead you down a different path than the reason you got in your car to go to the school in the first place.
Jerry, after Blake's going to go through these picks, these mock drafts or whatever, while he's doing that and talking about it, I want you to stop and kind of look through the draft, the mock draft of one of these, and count the number of guys out of the 32 that you saw in high school.
Okay.
I mean, not just huddle.
Yeah.
You know, went and did the research on a Matthew Golden, on a Jahdae Barron. You know what I mean? Where you actually did the deep dive like that, because I think that's what gets lost. But no national recruiting expert is able to go do the deep dive on all those players.
All those guys. So it's impossible. Yeah.
And that's where recruiting rankings sometimes can be not great information in. And so the data in creates distorted data going out. In my opinion.
You want to see the full draft, just to be clear.
I want Jerry to see the full 32 picks so he can kind of in his mind's eye. I think he's already doing it right now.
Yeah, I am.
I can see him cheating, basically.
So here's the crazy thing about this draft. Cam Ward, number 1 pick. He went to Columbia High School. The old, I hope he's not listening.
Was it West Columbia or Columbia?
West Columbia. It now goes by Columbia. So down, halfway between Houston and Bay City, essentially, down that way. His quarterback instructor in high school, because he did not play in a pro style offense. He did not play in a spread offense. Was Steve Van Meter, who was a former Friendswood head coach that played for my dad at Friendswood. So I've known Van, I call him Van, for years and years. And I remember him calling me and saying, I'm working with this kid, man. He's got a chance to be really good, and nobody's really recruiting him, and he ends up at Incarnate Word. So I didn't see him in high school, but I know the whole story of that and how Jimbo Fisher told Van that the kid wasn't good enough when he transferred from Incarnate Word.
Jerry, we got to stop this conversation. Got breaking news coming in. And, Jerry, you're going to have to do this because this is something you were waiting on to happen. You thought it was going to go down last night, and we weren't mentioning it on purpose. But St. John's guard transfer Simeon Wilcher has signed with the University of Texas. Jerry, as Blake pulls up that stuff, I'll let you go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, we were waiting on this now. I can say it. Simeon Wilcher made his official visit to Texas. We got in Sunday night, left Tuesday. Texas, look, Sean Miller, they love Simeon Wilcher. He played at St. John's. He started 25 games. And I'm going to talk about his 3-point percentage because I think this kid's a really good player. And I love that he's a 2-year player. Simeon Wilcher started 25 games for Rick Pitino, St. John's, Big East champs, number 2 seed, right? He did not shoot the 3 well last year, but I think you're going to see a big improvement for him. I think he's more of a 36% 3-point shooter. He's a 6'4" combo guard. Texas is not done. They have another spot left. I think that could go more international around the globe, which they continue to talk to some kids internationally around the globe. Simeon Wilcher, I expect him to be a double-digit scorer, I think he's a really good athlete. He's got the area he's got to improve, and the 3-point percentage is what everybody looks at. I said this on our threads on Texas football. I never looked at Milos Uzan at Oklahoma 2 years ago and thought he was a 29.5% 3-point shooter or a 65% free throw shooter. And this year at Houston, he certainly wasn't. He was the opposite of that. I think you're going to see Simeon Wilcher make a big jump shooting the 3 next year, but I think it's a great pickup because he's a 2-year player. And some people in chat, well, what's a 2-year player? Well, he's going to play college ball 2 more years. And I think Texas will be able to probably hold on to the guy for 2 years. But so they needed a 2-year guard. They needed a 6'4" combo guard that had athleticism, because what they didn't, the path that Texas didn't want to go down was 2 6-foot guards. Jordan Pope, 6 foot, 6'1.5". Kendall Weaver, 6'3", Tremont Mark, 6'5.5". But I actually really like the pickup here, and this is not like homerism or anything like this. I like Simeon Wilcher. I was familiar with him coming out of high school. He initially was going to North Carolina, then ended up at St. John's with Rick Pitino. And I'm telling you, Maryland, Chris Beard, BYU tried to come in. Chris Beard really tried to keep this kid from committing and just come visit, give me a chance type of thing. This is a kid who people wanted now when he jumped in the portal. And St. John's didn't want to lose him either. I know they've added other players, but they didn't want to lose him. Rick Pitino, you can find quotes on Rick Pitino saying this kid shoots the ball really well. I know he needs to shoot more threes, blah, blah, blah. But I like the pickup. Continues to elevate this team in year one. But there's now more multi-year players on this roster than 1-year players. And I think that's the whole key here. I don't care about the 1-year rental guys in putting a team of those guys together. I just don't for a first-year coach. I want the guy to build a little bit of a program here and not get into the 1-year rental wars. I like what he's done with the roster. They're not done with the roster, but credit Sean Miller, Chris Ogden, Adam Cohen, the associate head coach, and all those guys. I mean, Texas is going to be in the way too early, top 25s, top 20. They're going to be really competitive in year one, but I really like that they've built this roster that's looking at years 2 and years 3 as well, because I think that's so important. Don't get lost. You want to be good in year 1. You want to make the tournament. You want to be good. Maybe you get to a second weekend. Who knows? A lot of that's going to come down to how much a kid like this, how much better he is, how much more Sean Miller unlocks with Mark and Pope, which I think there is. How much better Matas gets in year 2. Does Dalen Swain, he's being mocked as a first-round pick in the 26 NBA draft. Does he look like a first-round pick? But I think this is a quality pickup. Texas beat out Chris Beard. They beat out Maryland. Buzz Williams, who had C.J. Wilcher's brother on the A&M roster last year. BYU tried to come in late. Villanova came in there when he jumped in the portal as well. This is a guy that was wanted by a lot of major programs, and it's another big win for Sean Miller as they build this team. I think there's one key spot left as far as a guy that will be a player next year. They have 2 scholarship spots left. One, I think, will go to another guard who will be a good player for them. And if they use that 13th scholarship, I think that could be more of a developmental guy that maybe you don't see in year 1 and you see more after a redshirt year.
Jerry, net this out for me a little bit. As a guy that I do not follow basketball recruiting clearly as heavily as you do. You said Texas now looks like a top 25 team. So you think Sean Miller with this roster looks like a tournament team?
Yes.
Next year?
Yes. Yeah, I do. I do. And, look, he's this is why this is when you hired a good coach. I for the Texas fans that maybe don't follow this close, you're getting a rankings bump because of Sean Miller. I mean, there's just truth in that. People know he's a really good coach, and they know if he gets to a place where he can build a roster with more talent, he's going to do well. And so I think Texas is definitely going to be a top 25 team next year. The guys have to stay healthy, right? Because I do believe, and look, it's not just me. It's the college coaches I've talked to think this is going to be a great developmental program. They think Sean Miller's tremendous in player development. He's really evolved. He's really evolved as an offensive coach, and he plays a faster style of play. Like his first year at Xavier, Xavier, that year they went to the Sweet 16 and went to the Sweet 16 and lost Fremantle late in the year, by the way. They improved by 8.3 points a game in year one. They went from like 71 points to around 80. So I think you're going to see that in Sean Miller's style. I think you're going to see Tremont Mark. You're going to see Jordan Pope unlocked a little bit more offensively. And they really like what they're seeing early on from Nick Cody, too, because they have their hands on these guys a little bit in the offseason now. They really like what they've seen from Nick Cody. They think he can make a pretty decent jump for them.
Good stuff. Sorry to interrupt our draft talk, but Longhorns got a big basketball commitment, so I figured we would bump in there and talk a little bit about it. Thanks, Jerry.
Definitely. All right, guys, we'll jump back over to the draft here for a second. And
Jerry, you were talking about seeing Cam Ward in high school.
Yeah, I did.
Van Meter was his quarterback coach in the off season, kind of the former Friendswood head coach. He also was the head coach at Hutto, wasn't he, for quite a bit of time up in Central Texas?
He was.
Yeah. So he's going number one. If you're to net it all out, if Cam Ward was not highly recruited in high school, period, he was
Incarnate Word was his only D1 offer. Incarnate Word.
Yeah. And is Incarnate Word D1 even?
I don't think they were at the time.
Yeah. So, but from that to the number one pick in the draft, tell me that doesn't matter where you play high school football.
Yeah.
I mean, no, it's not like Cam Ward all of a sudden became a great athlete.
Part of the story with that recruitment too is after he had a great year at Incarnate Word for a first-year quarterback, and he was going in the portal. A&M was contacted, and Coach Van Meter was like, I called him Coach Van Meter. He was coach at the time. He told A&M, I got a guy y'all need to look at. A&M looked at him, and Jimbo came back and said he's not good enough.
You
think that would have solved their quarterback problem for 3 years?
Yeah.
Said he wasn't good enough. But in defense of Jimbo, we're gonna have fun with that. He went to Washington State. A lot of people said he wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
To be fair. Yeah. But it's just funny how that kind of worked out. Travis Hunter obviously saw him, just a freak talent. I mean, because this was kind of at the end of some of these kids at the end of the ESPN days leading into the On3 national coverage days. So I saw a lot of these guys, whether it be at Under Armour camps that I was part of, or just a lot of times seeing guys there, or nationally going to a school, seeing a guy. Abdul Carter was really talented. I didn't think he didn't look like Will Anderson. We had Will Anderson in Under Armour camp on a freezing cold morning in Atlanta when he was a junior in high school. And I'll be honest, I didn't think Abdul Carter looked as good as Will Anderson. And I'm not saying Carter's be better, but from a draft perspective, but he's really good.
Let's just talk to us about the guys that you really saw.
Yeah.
Go down this list real quick, if you don't mind, Blake. And did you see Will Campbell in high school and talk to his high school coach?
Yeah, I played in the Under Armour All-America game. And then I went through that high school after he had early enrolled or was at LSU to see Zalance Hurd, who Texas.
Well, he was at West Monroe, right?
No, he was at Monroe Neville.
Monroe Neville. Okay.
Yeah. So Will Campbell, the coaching staff at Neville would tell you one of the top 2 or 3 guys that have ever come out of Neville as far as checking all the boxes, right? And I think that's kind of helped him in the draft. I mean, he checks all those boxes. Here's the crazy thing. I didn't see JT in high school.
JT, yeah.
Yeah, didn't see him in high school. Obviously wasn't a highly recruited guy. Kelvin Banks saw plenty. Mason Graham, the story there is the guy that's the GM now of Alabama, Courtney Morgan, was at Michigan. And Mason Graham at the time wasn't being heavily recruited. And Courtney Morgan got Michigan on him. He was at Anaheim Servite at the time, wasn't being really heavily recruited. So Courtney Morgan did a great job on Mason Graham. I know that.
Kelvin Banks, the first $1 million. Courtney Morgan's the first $1 million GM in college football, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah. So I would give a tip to him on that one because he got on that kid before he kind of was and he was never a top national guy. Okay, keep rolling.
Well, I do want to add real quick. Matt Miller also now projecting Kelvin Banks to the Raiders with the 6th pick. As he said, multiple sources have told him.
So he's gone from a guard falling out of the first round to the top 7. You think these guys don't play games?
So I just wanted to note that, as I feel like that's a pretty important note there.
Yeah, that is good. Jerry's right. Jerry's right. They fall in love, fall out of love, then fall back in love. It's like so some of these draft guys are like high school teenagers. You know what I mean? All of this stuff. Did you see Jalen Walker in high school by chance, Jerry?
Yes.
Georgia defensive end.
His dad's a small college coach, I believe was at Western Carolina for a time. Jalen Walker was stupendous good. I mean, I've always been high on him. You guys know that I've had a relationship for years with Will Muschamp, and he also talked about how good this guy was, man. Before he was actually playing too, like Georgia knew, Kirby and Muschamp knew that Jalen Walker was going to be a potential all-pro guy. He was really good. Jalen Walker technically was way ahead of others because his father was a college coach. Tyler Warren did not see him coming out of Virginia. Michael Williams saw him. Yeah, the crazy thing is Michael Williams, he has added a lot of muscle. I mean, like if you look at that, and he was a 5-star guy. He was one of the guys we considered to be number 1 overall with Jihad. I thought Jihad Campbell was the number 1 kid in that class nationally, by the way. But Michael Williams, saw him in All-Star game, saw him at camp. Really, he's added a lot of muscles, fought through a lot of ankle injuries, minor ankle injuries. Tatura McMillan stud on the volleyball court as well.
Oh, he was a volleyball. You got to say this. That's 2 guys from Anaheim Servite, though, in the top 12 in the draft.
Yeah.
So out of Orange County, because Mason Graham and McMillan, both Anaheim Servite products.
So then you have McMillan to the Cowboys, which seems to be the consensus. And then
Will Johnson was a freak in high school. Everybody knew it. That was an easy one.
Another important note right here. Mel Kiper weighs in. Miami definitely needs a corner, but I wouldn't be surprised if it favors Texas' Jahdae Barron over Johnson. Barron had 5 picks and moved all over the Texas defense last season, Kiper says.
I did not see Loveland coming out of Idaho in person. He tested well at I believe at an Under Armour camp that I wasn't at.
There are some people that think Loveland is, by the way, this would be 3 Michigan players in the top 14. So for those people that think that Michigan wasn't talented or somehow Texas didn't go up and beat their butt and they weren't just good, they just didn't have a quarterback last year.
Wow.
They were good everywhere else, basically. But that would be 3 in the top 14. Some people have Loveland going ahead of Tyler Warren at tight end. Tyler Warren, they think, was more of a focal point of that offense. And while Colston Loveland just didn't have a quarterback to get him the ball. So some NFL scouts have Loveland over him. Did you see Josh Simmons? I know you probably didn't see Mike Green, right, out of Marshall. What about Josh Simmons?
Now, Mike Green originally signed with Virginia. I think he went to Under Armour camp in Baltimore, but he wasn't one of the standout guys, but he was like 200 and maybe 15, 20. I wish I had the old list from those camps. I don't have access to it anymore, obviously. I think he was like 210 maybe his junior year at one of those camps. But he's obviously he's blown up his body. He's 255, 260 now. He started out at Virginia and transferred to Marshall, I believe. Josh Simmons, I did not see in high school. Walter Nolan, obviously, yes, was a total freak at the Under Armour. When Walter Nolan wants to play, he's a top 5 level pick. If he ever just says, I want to see how close to Chris Jones I can be, that guy's a great player. Like, he has a hellacious talent. Zabel, I'm not sure how many people saw him. Obviously, Barron was good at Baylor. Played some receiver, played some DB. Saw Matthew Golden plenty. Marion Hampton was really good in high school. That was a huge recruiting win for Mac Brown at the time. Had that perfect running back build even coming out of high school. Tyler Booker, one of my favorite kids I've talked to in recent years. He was at IMG, easy 5-star call on him. Shamar Stewart saw him multiple times, easy 5-star call on his talent level. Nick Emanuori, unbelievable looking kid, even younger physically. Josh Connerly's better than I thought he would be. I honestly didn't know if he was going to be physical enough, but I think he's grown mentally. It wasn't like physical talent. He had a great frame. You knew what he could become. I think my question there was he going to be physically tough enough? And I think that was more mental versus a strength thing. He's gained strength like any lineman, but I think he's gotten to be a much more physical player in college. Did not see Schweisinger that I remember.
I think he was a walk-on, by the way.
Yeah, Malachi Starks was a great player. Donovan Jackson saw him in Houston area, obviously at camps, tremendous talent. Shedeur Sanders obviously played in the Under Armour game. Dion used to coach in that game with us. Saw him plenty growing up. Maxwell Harrison, I think that guy may be the best corner in the draft, honestly. I love Maxwell Harrison. Great makeup speed. His length is ridiculous. Kenneth Grant, don't remember him from camps, but we obviously remember ranking him, but I don't remember him from a camp setting.
And that's it.
Also, where's Matthew Golden?
Golden was up in there.
Yeah, Broncos 20. Yeah. I do want to add that Kiper did buzzy names to watch outside of the first round, and they do have Andrew Makuba listed, the only Texas player listed in that. But he says, here's a few names that kept coming up in Kiper's calls this week. Good football players who could go anywhere from round 2 to round 5. They're listed in order of his top 150 big board rankings, where he has Makuba at number 70. But he does list Makuba there.
You know what's crazy is Ashton Gillette. He was a guy that was he rumored to be going in the portal? Because he came out of Boca. I think he was Cardinal Gibbons' guy. And after his first couple of years, he was good, right? He had 7 sacks, and there were some rumors that he was going to go in the portal, and he never went in the portal. And Louisville's absolutely glad he didn't, right? But that was a guy that we had kind of behind the scenes are like, hey, man, if this guy jumps in, watch out here if you cover Texas. I don't think he ever officially went in, but that was a guy that some colleges at one point were hoping was going to go in after his sophomore year. That would have been after the 22 season.
Okay, well, before we get to supers and questions, I need to tell everybody about Ownwell. And for you homeowners out there, you're probably in the same situation that I'm in. Property taxes continue to rise and rise and rise with absolutely no relief in sight. And let's face it, owning property comes with plenty of challenges as it is. And overpaying on property tax should not be one of them. But did you know that you can fight your property taxes and save thousands of dollars every year? Ownwell believes that when it comes to paying property tax, you should only pay what's fair, and I'm with them on that. Sign up in under 3 minutes, and their team of local experts in cutting-edge technology can start saving you money with no upfront cost. It's not fun to fight them by yourself, and I can tell you that based on my own personal experiences. The whole protesting process is just a pain in the you-know-what, so put property tax money back in your pocket in just minutes. Ownwell handles everything from start to finish. They deliver top-notch results with no upfront costs, and that's the best part of it. You only pay if you save. 86% of Ownwell's customers receive a reduction, with the average customer savings of a little over $1,100. Now, the deadline to protest is May 15th for most counties here in Texas, so save money on your property taxes with Ownwell. Sign up in less than 3 minutes and start your protest today at ownwell.com/OTF. That's Ownwell, OWNWELL.com/OTF. Yesterday, guys, I actually mistook the super chat. I thought it was, for Mr. Tony Heels here, but it was actually for you guys. It comes from Slick Rick. So Slick Rick, number 1, my apologies. And number 2, thank you for your super chat. But Slick Rick says the Mac Brown episode on 3rd and Longhorn was amazing. Which head coach has impacted your life the most at Texas? And what impact has Mac Brown left on you?
Well, for me, it's David McWilliams, the former Texas Longhorn coach. When I was a student at Texas, gave me the opportunity to work for the football team. And then not only did he do that, he wrote me 2 letters of recommendation following that. Got me a job at the University of Houston as a graduate student there with the football program and the recruiting department, and then also it helped me get a job coaching in high school for a year. So David McWilliams for me, as far as the impact Mack Brown had on me, it was my first up close look at, and there's a lot of different things he had an impact on, but it was my first up close look at an elite recruiter where I saw the ins and outs of everything. Because I'd been a national recruiting analyst essentially from 1993 on. And so I had 5 years in the business before Mack made it to Austin. And so the guys that I was watching that I thought did a really good job, Bobby Bowden was one of them, right? He was the guy in recruiting. But that was kind of, I didn't see every single player he was recruiting, if that makes sense. And with Mack, it was a little different. So it was my first up close look at what an elite recruiter does and how he creates that culture is not the right word, but that surrounding of him that is all encompassing. And so I will never forget just how quickly that turned and how quickly it can turn for someone, because that's what he was able to do. I mean, literally turned it in a year. That's the kind of impact a coach can have in college football. In other college sports, when recruiting is such a big piece of the puzzle.
My thing with Mack was he had the best memory recall of like any college coach I've been around. It was crazy, and what that kind of did for me being young in the business was like, man, I better learn to have that memory recall as well. Like Mack would go, he'd meet a high school coach at his, like when they invited high school coaches up, and I know one of these stories from a head coach I knew. He'd meet a high school coach, and he would initially meet that guy, ask about his family, get in a conversation with him. He saw this one coach like 7-8 years later. He didn't ask him by name how he was doing. He asked how his grandkids by name were doing. I was like, okay, that's like next level stuff. If you want to be able to win recruitments, if you have great memory recall and great communication way about you, when you go in to see a high school coach and you're going to see his best player, and the first thing you start to talk about with him is his grandkids by name, and the coach is like, Coach, that was like 7 years ago. Well, yeah, how are they doing? You think that doesn't matter in recruiting? I mean, you think that doesn't leave an impression? I mean, so he had still has an unbelievable memory recall, like the best I've ever seen. In terms of Texas, nobody will ever treat me as well as Rick Barnes did, though. I'll just be honest. Like Rick Barnes was unbelievable. Like I was, there's a funny story with that. I was like, he's one of the funniest human beings you'll ever meet. But I was at the game. It was the first round, TJ Fort's freshman year up at Dallas, and they beat Mississippi State, I think it was, to go to the Sweet 16 where they lost to Oregon 72-70. And I was just hanging out after, and Rick, coach, like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? I was like, I'm heading over here. He said, well, you need a ride? You can ride the team bus to the hotel if you need. I was like, Coach, I'm not allowed to do that. All right. I mean, it's not like I can't do that. But Rick was the funniest. Like, if you went to cover his camps, like back when you had the big elite camps in basketball, when they had all the guys that were future NBA players on campus, he would literally sit there and just have a conversation. Be like, what do you think of this guy? What do you like about his game? What do you not like about his game? He was always just like, as far as a college coach, he was probably, I probably had the most fun with him of any coach that's ever been at Texas. I'll say that.
Marcus Myers there with a comment in the chat there, the former Texas linebacker. saying that Coach Brown still remembers everyone. He still asks him about his brother and parents by name. It's been 25. I mean, it's just that's where he, that's that kind of thing, man.
Yeah.
He just has that instant recall.
Yeah. Special. That's a special quality.
That is. It makes people feel heard,
Yeah.
and seen.
Yeah. All right, we have a lot more super chats, so we're going to dive right into them. Jackson S here, thank you for the super chat. Heard from Kendall Rogers, Spencer may be done this season. Yeah, not looking good. That's why I keep telling y'all that he arrived at Texas hurt, and he's been hurt a lot during his career.
So and this is the left-handed Friday pitcher. Make sure people know who you're talking about.
Yes, yeah. So the Friday night starter on the mound for Texas. Yes, Spencer will be. He definitely is out this weekend. I'll go ahead and tell you guys that. I'll break the bad news to you. Definitely out this weekend. And I know this is also going to bring a lot of Jonah Williams questions. Will he play this weekend? I was told just a few minutes ago that is still up in the air. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But do not expect Spencer to be there this weekend. And don't be surprised if he doesn't play for a while. Jay Lee here. Thank you for the super chat. How do you think freshman defensive tackles feel about the transfers? Most know they weren't going to start, but they have to assume their few snaps are now even fewer.
Look, I think that they're most freshmen, now not all, and Jerry can speak to this, they're drinking water from a fire hose right now. Okay? They're not worried about getting 50 snaps a game. They're just trying to make sure they're worth 10 to 15. Like Alex January a year ago. I want to say this. Came to Texas with the head on his shoulders. Bright, went to work immediately. He wasn't worried about trying to get 50 snaps a game. Now, that's a goal for him, obviously, right? But he was just trying to work his way up the ladder. If I don't think that I haven't heard of any discontent in that regard. They're just both trying to be positive players on the team. So, Jay, I hear you. And maybe there comes a point where that happens a year from now. But if Brevard, Shaw, Canoe move on, that opens up 3 spots for those 2 guys. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, look, I think for guys is as long as they feel like they're being developed, that's always are you developing guys and you can help them reach their goals and dreams of being an NFL football player. If guys don't feel like that as a younger player and they're not playing, that's when you get into issues. Now, that doesn't mean some guys aren't going to transfer. It's college sports, but I think those guys, if they feel like they made the right decision, they feel like they're getting better, they're happy in their environment where they're at. Look, and I gotta be real. The best thing about what Sark has going for him with younger kids, just Arch stayed at Texas. Not like he ever was going to consider transferring. It was all clickbait. But you don't have anybody to point to and say, guys, this is all. It's about your development. Stick with the process. Trust the process, the development. Trust what we're going to do for you. And then if you need to have the ringer walk in and say something, you got that too.
Okay, then our next super chat, fellas, from Jack. Thank you, Jack. We appreciate you as always. He says, Rod has done film review of last year and kept getting fooled by Anthony Smith. Wondering who was the corner. Should we be cross-training him as a defensive back?
Not as a DB. That's just not who Anthony Smith is, right, Jerry? I mean, he's too big. Yeah. I think that where is he? He's different than Mo Blackwell, Jerry.
Yeah.
So Mo Blackwell is that long, lanky, kind of dime defender linebacker, right? Anthony Smith is more of an every down guy, potentially, who I think just has to get stronger to maybe play inside. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what goes, but I don't think they should be cross-training him as a DB. I really don't. I think he's a linebacker through and through.
I think that's, and I haven't, maybe I've missed what Rod said. I think he's just talking about how athletic he looked and his movement skills. So he's like, is that a DB out there? He kind of, because of his movement skills and because he doesn't look big out there on the field.
He doesn't, but he is big.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing, is that these guys are, he's going to end up being 225, 230. He can run.
No doubt. And he's going to play a long time.
Yeah.
I think. I'll predict that.
I'm just telling you, dude, Texas is, I was talking to somebody late last night. I mean, how many rosters in college football look like this? Hey, Jerry, I mean, we both do this. Handful at most.
Yeah.
I don't think very many have the depth that Texas does.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean Texas is going to win 12 games things happen, but it won't be because of lack of, like, I watched plenty of Texas football where Texas did not have the personnel to win football games.
Yeah.
If Texas loses football games next year, it's very unlikely it will be because of a personnel deficiency, barring injury. Very unlikely it will be a personnel issue.
Robert Jackson, the Emperor, said, is Alex January still on the team? Very much. Had a really good spring. Maybe a starter. He'll probably play starter level snaps, whether he starts a game or not. That's up to Kenny Baker and Sark, and there's more competition to be had in the fall there. But yeah, he's had a really good spring and has a bright future.
All right, Bobby, before we get to some more super chats, can you let everyone know about Vaughn Lane one more time, please, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're coming in from the fan appreciation day from Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, etc., make sure you use Vaughn Lane. It's easy. It's flying is such a hassle. You security lines, packed gates, delayed flights, all for a 50-minute trip. It's just not worth it. Driving isn't much better, especially yourself. You're going to be out in the sun all day at Fan Appreciation Day. If you've ever tried a same-day round trip from Houston or Dallas to Austin, there's hours of lost productivity, emails pile up, work left undone while you focus on the road. Why waste the day when you can stay connected and productive? Driving yourself on I-35, I-45, I-10 can be stressful. Next time you need to travel between Austin, Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth, or San Antonio, skip all that stress and ride Vaughn Lane. Your private jet on wheels arrived just minutes before departure at one of Vaughn Lane's centrally located luxurious hotel partners. Settle into your spacious reclining seat with tons of legroom and personal space. Enjoy complimentary snacks, drinks, Wi-Fi, and even meals on select departures, all while you sit back and relax. Take a look at their website, vaughnlane.com, to get a feel for what it should be. vaughnlane.com. Use promo code OTF25 for $20 off your first trip. Vaughn Lane, first class travel without the hassle. Experience travel the way it should be, nice and easy for what you're doing there. Get on the bus. Everybody get on the bus.
That's right. We got more super chats here. We're going to start with this one from Cliff. Thank you, Cliff. We appreciate you. And he says, in the portal, are there some positions that are more important to have high school players learn their position through Sark's system, like quarterback? Hookle.
Is there, Jerry?
I muted myself, but offensive line. I think that's very much a developmental, multi-year position in college football. And
you're also trying to create not camaraderie is not the
continuity,
cohesiveness. Cohesion. I think that's a fair point. And by the way, Cliff, I haven't seen you in a couple months since last football game. Thanks for checking in there, man.
What do you think about tight end? Ideally, because it's
for Sark's
system.
So much movement, pre-snap, and boy, you saw an advantage of that of Gunnar Helm, right? How he learned it over time. Even Juan Davis outperformed Amari Niblack because of that continuity and understanding of what he was trying to do. And that's not a knock on Juan Davis. It's more of a understanding. Hey, you got to be a pretty smart guy to handle tight end at Texas under Sark.
And then we have a super chat from Nick. And Nick says, Jerry, your thoughts on Layla Filia entering the portal?
Well, it means that Vic and the staff have a little more work to do, because she was an all Big Ten performer that was injured last year, obviously. Didn't play. It was never really a factor, but was a 17-point per game scorer. And when she initially signed, she was thought to be the number 2 scorer to Madison Booker, but then the injury obviously kept her out this season. So it means Texas I think they have a little more work to do in the portal, because she could score. She could score the basketball. She could shoot it. Really good mid-range game. Just a really good player, and had size at the guard position. So definitely add some pressure for a portal addition that is an impact player. Now, Aaliyah Crump's going to be really good coming in. I think Jordan Lee is going to be really good in year 2. And I've said, how much are they going to play Rory and Bree Preston together more in spurts next year? Because Bree Preston will play more minutes. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of put the pieces of this team together. But I do think losing Layla Filia, even though she was never really impacted winning at Texas, when she transferred in and they were putting their team together on paper, she was a huge part of it before she got injured. So I think they're going to need to replace some of that scoring they thought they were going to have. Now, Isaiah Stewart's asked about Full Wiley from South Carolina. People have asked about the girl from I think is it Keep Neepkins out of Utah, Blake. I don't know if we have any updates there. I know she visited.
No, I think still in the process of making a decision on that one. So we wait and see. All right. Demond wants to know, can you guys let me know if fan day is an open practice or is it a large gathering for fans?
It's a large gathering for fans. It is not an open practice unless they change it at the 11th hour, which Texas is not off to do. It is a gathering for fans, fan appreciation. They're going to have Bevo Boulevard and the fair atmosphere going on down there. Right next to the north side of the stadium where the Hall of Honor is. They'll also have fan autograph lines. I think that's going to be on the northeast corner of the stadium. You'll be able to – they've got a 40-yard dash for people to I don't know. I'm still thinking that Jerry may pull a hamstring or an Achilles on that if we can get him to do it.
I'm not doing it.
But it is a fan appreciation deal. There is no open practice to my knowledge. At least not as of right now. That Texas could always change, but I don't think so.
And then Jack here with another one. Jack says, once again, RIP to Steve McMichael. Whether you knew him as Bam Bam or Mongo, he is a Texas legend.
Yeah, it's very interesting. At Texas, they knew him as Bam Bam, and then when he went to Chicago, they started calling him Mongo. Again, his family, rest in peace, man. Rest in peace.
And then Drew Walker.
And I also, I got to mention this. I mentioned it early. I actually gotten a couple more texts from people, from former players. There's a memorial service today for Kenneth Sims, the former Longhorns defensive tackle. He is his memorial service is at 11 in Austin today. Friends, families, former teammates, a lot of them will be there today supporting him and his family.
And then we got one from Drew Lockhart. And Drew, we thank you. Do you guys recall what Watson and Mosley were ranked coming out of high school? I hope Sark goes all in on Gregory and Cooper. Everyone have a blessed day and hook 'em.
Well, yeah, Demond Watson actually picked. He was Murad Watson. Sorry, he picked Syracuse over Tennessee, and he kind of came on as a senior. He was like all Garden State or whatever. He ended up as a high 3-star prospect in the industry, but a guy that really came on as a senior. Picked again. He made an official visit to Tennessee. Picked Syracuse over Tennessee, and what was a huge recruiting win at the time for Syracuse. High 3-star prospect. Emmett Mosley had a little bit of a knee injury his senior year. He was a guy that Texas liked early on, and then he got banged up his senior year. Again, high 3-star prospect, and as far as national rankings go, he picked Stanford over UCLA. Those were his 2 official visits coming out of high school, and he has grown. He was a late developer because seeing him in person, he's definitely all of probably 1.5, 6'2", and 195. And I think he was more closer to 6 feet coming out of high school.
Washington recruited him very heavily too, by the way. Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah.
You mentioned Courtney Morgan, the Alabama GM. He was the GM at Washington for a spell. He was recruiting Emmett Mosley as well. Aaron Gregory and Derek Cooper, Jerry. Aaron Gregory, the wide receiver out of South Georgia, out of Douglasville, right? He asked about him. He is currently committed to A&M.
A&M, he has official visits to A&M June 6th through 8th, Texas the 13th through 15th. We'll see if he locks in any other OVs around that. But right now it could be a state of Texas battle for arguably a top receiver in Georgia, which sounds crazy, but I think that's where we're at now. Are you going to
go to A&M and be a receiver versus Texas? I mean, look, receivers are transferring out of A&M right now.
Yeah,
Noah Thomas.
Yeah, and look, college. For what it's worth, there's been a lot of predictions he won't end up in the A&M class, but I will wait on that until I've heard this. We've all heard all this stuff before. He'll never go there, but we'll see.
They definitely are going to have more attrition than the average school.
Yeah, hey, can you?
Because they went out and went early and tried to get all these early commitments and yada yada yada.
Hey, can you play Braden Rouse's huddle real quick, Blake? We were going to do that earlier. The linebacker out of Marietta Kell, if you still have that pulled up, while I talk about Derek Cooper and then Braden Rouse. Derek Cooper, I'm 5-star running back. He'll be on campus with his mom, stepdad this weekend. He's out of Chaminade in Hollywood, Florida. Can throw a pebble and hit the Fort Lauderdale airport almost. I think he's a stud. This will be his first visit to Texas. We'll see then if Texas gets an official visit locked in with Derek Cooper. This is Braden Rouse out of Marietta Kell, the Kell Longhorns, by the way. He has 4 official visits. They are Alabama, Michigan, Texas, June 13th through 15th, and then Tennessee on the 20th through 22nd. The teams I've heard most about early on in this recruitment were Tennessee and then Alabama. We'll see where it heads, but Johnny Nansen, Kenny Baker, and at the time Tashard Choice went by the school in January, finally got him on campus last weekend, and he immediately scheduled an OV, kind of like Drake Quinn did, the 4-star edge out of Norcross, Greater Atlanta Christian. So, look, Texas is dare you say they're a hot school in the state of Georgia? I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you think they're hot now, wait until Justice Terry and Nick Brooks hit the field. I mean, we keep hearing Nick Brooks is doing an unbelievable spring, by the way, guys. So Braden Rouse, 6'3", 210, long-armed, athletic, kind of that long-armed frame guy is kind of what you're seeing Johnny Nansen target at the University of Texas. This guy, Atlanta area, I think is the most talented city. Greater Atlanta area is the most talented area in the country right now for all spots combined. And this kid, they have their linebacker class in that state's off the charts. Last year it was D-line. This year it's linebackers with Tyler Atkinson, Xavier Griffin, who I think will make an official visit to Texas. The USC committed Gainesville, Braden Rouse, a few others. I mean, their linebackers are elite out of that state in this class. They're all long-limbed kids that can really run, have range, rush the passer. Great group of linebackers in that state.
Long and can run and have yes, please.
Bobby, think about the linebackers we've watched from the state of Georgia on this show. Atkinson, Xavier Griffin, this guy. And that's just 3. Those are the 3 most highly ranked guys. But it goes deep in that state at linebacker.
Well, Georgia has 2 linebacker edge guys going in the first round this year. So it's not like it's new or should be new to people.
Yeah.
What do we got next? Blake, we got to get going here.
We got one more. And also for everybody that's asked me about baseball and injuries and who's starting this weekend, I just dropped some notes over on ontexasfootball.com. You can head over there and read that and find out. But Slick Rick is going to close this out today. He opened us with Super Chats. He's going to close this as well. He says, Bobby Jerry, who's been your biggest recruiting bust in Texas football history? Jonte Cook, Jonathan Gray. Who was the biggest surprise as well? Maybe Michael Tapp.
Well, Jonte Cook is not the biggest bust because he wasn't rated that highly. I mean, Jonathan Gray actually started. He just got injured.
Tons of injuries.
Surprised not Taft because he was recruited as a preferred walk-on. So I don't even, I mean, biggest surprise.
I have one. He's a part of our channel. Brian Robeson.
Oh, yeah.
Great athlete, but nobody that
three-star.
Yeah,
three-star with a 14-year NFL career.
No, even the schools that recruited him, they didn't have him pegged to be what he became, and it happens. They knew he was a talented kid, but for him to be the Brian Robeson everybody knows now, even the colleges that recruit him, I don't think they thought that. Well, I mean, Garrett Gilbert was a National Player of the Year.
Yeah.
And was the reason Mac didn't offer Andrew Luck.
And a host of others.
Mm-hmm.
Colt McCoy, that's a good one. Biggest surprise. Great, Marco. Good comment there. Jonathan Brooks was a 4-star, though.
Yeah.
And I was very high on Jonathan Brooks.
I mean, Michael Huff's got to be in the conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a track guy that was a 3-star recruit that ended up winning the Thorpe.
Yeah.
Being a top 10 pick. He had to be in it.
Yeah. There's been
Puna Ford's a great one, Frank. Now, I saw Puna in high school. In that time, that was 24/7. Bobby and I were there, and I had Puna ranked in the top 247 players in the country. I'll never see a person with longer arms at 5'11" than him. I jokingly said, like the coach, the head coach at Hilton Head, which is a cool school to visit, by the way, a good place to stay for a night. Let's say high school prospect. The coach opened the door to the classroom, was like, asked the teacher, hey, can Puna come out for a few minutes? And I saw Puna get up. I said, he could open the door from like the 3rd row. Like that guy's arms were so long. He like reached out to shake my hand. I was like, Mike, dude, your arms, this is ridiculous. Like, how's a 5'11" person having 3-inch wingspan? 82, whatever it was. I was like, that's unbelievable. He was like a plus 11 wingspan. That's like unheard of stuff.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football, presented by the good folks at Vaughn Lane. We want to thank them, along with Mint Mobile, Pure Hydration, and Ownwell, all for sponsoring today's show. Of course, thank you all for tuning in as well. And the questions, the super chats. Just remember, if we don't get to your questions, it's definitely not intentional, but you can head on over to ontexasfootball.com, get those questions answered there as well, and use promo code OTFOG when you sign up. You'll save a little money. You can lock in an annual subscription for $49.95. Again, if you use promo code OTFOG at ontexasfootball.com. And Bobby, you got anything that besides the draft?
Tonight, 7:00, join us. We also have some other comments and stuff. I had a big piece today, by the way, on ontexasfootball.com about what I'm hearing from behind the scenes at practice right now. You might want to check us out over there at ontexasfootball.com. Get on a bus and go to Vaughn Lane, by the way. Use Vaughn Lane this weekend to get to Austin. We'll see you guys out there. I'm headed down to Austin today. And going to be there through the weekend as well for the Fan Appreciation Day, etc. Hope to see you guys out there.
That's right. I want to read that. We'll close with this. It's 4:20 somewhere. Thank you for the super chat. Good morning, OTF. Late to the party, but want to send my condolences to Mongo McMichael's family, one of the all-time Longhorn greats. Hook 'em.
Hook 'em, guys.
There you go. Well, we will be back tomorrow morning. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe.